Isn't it incredible? We've got these devices that we carry around in our pockets, and they've got the most amazing cameras on them, and they just get better and better at each iteration that they bring out. And they've also got editing software for free built right in. So on this iPhone, it has the Photos app, and I can edit on it. And I'm going to show you a quick look at that in just a moment. So with this amazing camera, what makes it really so much better, and I promise you, if you try this, you're really going to notice a difference. But these lenses, they go everywhere, in and out of your pocket, on tables, you name it. And a good idea is to just keep it a bit clean. Just a little wipe before you take a picture, particularly if you've got the sun in front of you or a light, it will really improve it. If you had a camera, mirrorless or DSLR or any other type of camera, you wouldn't allow the lenses to get that dirty. So quick wipe, and so much better, I promise you. So I've got this photo here. I took it recently. It was snowing here in London, and I want to edit it. And one of the great things about this is whatever changes I make here, and this applies to things like Lightroom, which you can use on your desktop, on your iPhone, your iPad, and even available, I believe now, on Android. So what I can do is I can go into Edit here, and I've now got the opportunity to make a lot of different changes to it. So I can change the brightness, I can change the contrast, something called Brilliance, of which I've got a video for that. But the one thing I could always try first is you've got like a magic wand here, and you can see it says auto. So first things first, let's see what happens if I try that. So let's just press auto. It kind of made some nice changes. Let's just press on it again, turns it off, and basically switch it on. Okay, now from there, I could actually go and make changes. So if I go over to here to the exposure, it's done the auto bit. I can now change it to my liking. And you'll see it's got a whole load here, and you can see outside of these circles, it's got things like the shadows. There's a little line there indicating how much. And if I was to tap on it, it can turn it on and off. And you can see it's done that setting. But let's just go back here to auto and just switch that off. Okay, so one of the first things I do is it's kind of useful to work in order here, and I'm not going to go into great detail with them. But basically, if I move across, there's the exposure. That's probably an obvious one. Think of it as your brightness. So you can make it brighter, darker, and you can see things by making it a bit darker, makes the sky a bit richer, but then I'm maybe losing some other details here as well. So maybe let's just make it a teeny bit darker. And you can compare what it looks like before and after, because if you tap on that circle there with the exposure, you can turn it off and on to see what it's like. And you can do on each of the settings here. So you could switch, say, brilliance off and then exposure off and just see what's happening. So let's move over to brilliance. Now this is something that I don't see on Lightroom, but basically it makes the brighter areas darker and the darker areas a bit brighter. And I've got a video showing that in a little bit more detail, and I've left the link below. But again, you can slide backwards and forwards. And I always think of it as, you know, you can see what it does, and there's so good digital photography in this sense. So one of the things you can do is sometimes I kind of go across and I think, oh, that's too much, and then take it back. And that's sometimes how you know when you've got it right. So if I go to the exposure here and I'm thinking, okay, I want to make it a little bit darker. Okay. And then you just know, right, I've gone too far. So it's always a case of go as far as you can. And if you've gone too far, just pull it back just a little bit. And you'll find for all of these settings, that kind of works. So next to brilliance is the highlights. So you can make all the bright areas a little bit darker. And I can do that just by sliding across. That makes them brighter. The other way makes them darker. So with the snow, I want to make it a little bit brighter. And then you've got shadows, which are the dark areas. And if you look here down at the bottom where there's the shadow of the shed there, if I slide it across, it's making it darker. If I go the other way, it's making it brighter. And then you've got contrast, which is kind of the opposite to brilliance. It makes bright areas brighter and dark areas darker. And again, that can just add richness, but it can also add in color. So let me just drag that across or back the other way. You can see the sky, the color of the sky, or the richness of the sky is changing there. Now, in addition to all of that, you've also got brightness as well, which is kind of like the exposure. if I've done the exposure, I tend not to use the brightness. You've then got the black points. Now that's an interesting one because most people don't think of these, but you can make, if something's meant to be black like this background and it's not quite black, what you can do is slide this up and down until it has that richness, that rich blackness in there. You've got saturation, which can increase the color. So if I do that, look at the sky, it changes it. Also the fencing and everything can change. If you go the other way, it takes it out. And if you remove the saturation altogether, it's black and white, it's monochrome. So let's just add a little bit more in there as well. Now here's one that I like, and you'll find this on Lightroom and others as well, which is called vibrance. It's like saturation, but it doesn't affect skin tones. So if you use saturation on someone's skin, it can change the saturation, the color on their skin, the tone of it, and you don't really want to do that. But with vibrance, it's much more subtle and it doesn't actually affect the skin color, which I think is really nice. So again, you can see I slide across. I don't have a picture of a person in here, but that's what it does. And then you've got warmth. Now that's because lights have different colors. So if you're looking at this, you might be thinking that it might be off a bit in color. You might be looking, particularly when you're looking at people's skin, is the color correct for them? And you can just, by sliding across it, makes it warmer. Look at what happens to the snow. It becomes definitely more orange. If I go the other way, it makes it cooler. Now I see a lot of people doing photos from the snow, and if you look at a lot of those photos, their pictures can seem a little bit grey, and that's because they need to increase the exposure a bit. But it's also, I kind of like it by adding in this little bit of blue here. It just gives it that cold tint. Blue makes things appear a bit cooler, and red or orange makes things a bit more warmer, which can be a lot more appealing on people. So if you make someone look a bit blue, it might not look right because it might make them look cold. But if you warm it up just a touch, and sometimes it's just a slight amount that you're doing. So as I said, just do little bits. If you think you've gone too far, you can always take it back. You can always come back to it later. Then next to that is tint. So you get more in the way of adjusting your color here as well. I'm not going to change that. Then you've got sharpness. You can make your pictures a lot sharper. So if you're looking at them and you're thinking particularly printing or whatever, you may not see it here, but I do that. It makes each of the pixels that much sharper. And the same with definition is kind of like the texture. It kind of adds texture to it. If you've got things that have got a lot of texture in them, maybe like this jumper, and you really want to show that off, you would do that. You have noise reduction. If you've taken it and it's a bit dark and it's looking a bit grainy, you can slide that across to get rid of it. But look at what it's doing, because it could actually look a little bit, you can take away the detail when you add too much noise reduction. And sometimes it's a case, I'm just using both fingers here to zoom in. And sometimes it's a good idea to do that with the sharpness as well and the noise reduction. There's no noise or perceivable noise here. But look at the sharpness. I've just gone back. Look at that. It's making it that you may not see it on this, but it's making it sharper, which can make your pictures look nicer. So back to noise reduction. And then another one, the vignettes. So let's just zoom out. I'm just pinching to zoom out. Vignette puts, either makes it a little bit darker around the edges or a bit brighter. And just the slightest amount, which people may not even perceive, can draw your attention to that picture, particularly useful for things like portraits and stuff. So let me just slide it and you'll see, look at that. It makes the edges darker going that way, and it makes them brighter going that way. And it's just subtle, just a subtle bit. Look, let me just do a subtle bit. It's almost like you don't even notice, right? Let me just go, well, that's because there was nothing there. Let's just go there. Let me just tap on it, on, off. So the other thing you can do is, once you've done all that, you can actually add filters. So you've got your original, and you've got vivid, vivid warm. You may even want to start here. So vivid cool could look really good for this. And you can choose any of these. Dramatic warm, I don't think really works for the snow. But all of this is your perception. And by the way, you can go back and change any of these at any time, and you could reset the whole lot. We're going to take a look at that in just a second. So as I said, this doesn't destroy the picture that you make changes on. So if I tap on crop here, I can now straighten it. If I think it's a bit skewed, that's the first one. I've then got my distortion as well. So that's doing it top to bottom if maybe it was a bit of an angle. And you can do the same here if you need to make any kind of adjustments to sort of straighten it up. Now the edges, you can pull that in to crop in. And in the top corner here on the right, you've got these rectangles here. And if you tap on that, let me just tap on that. It's freeform, so I could make it any kind of shape I like that. Or I could make it square. So any sliding I do kind of keeps it square. I can then go to, say, original. Let's just go to original here. We'll keep that same aspect ratio. I could change it. It's showing me its portrait. I can make it landscape and back again. And I'm really, really going to crop it in. Let's go across here. So wallpaper would be the size of the wallpaper on the phone, the aspect ratio for that. You've got 9:16, and if I did landscape, it would change to 16:9. So that's the aspect ratio of a widescreen television. So you've got 5:4, 4:3, which is very common in photos that you may have got printed, but there's lots of variations of that. I'm going to tap on done. If I don't like any of these, I could just obviously hit cancel. So let's hit done. And there's the picture. It's done, okay? But I look at it and I think, nah, you know what? Don't want it. I want to go right back to the beginning, or I want to make changes. Guess what? Just tap on edit again. And they're all there. And you can see bottom right-hand corner. If I want to start all over again, guess what? I just tap on revert. Otherwise, I can just go back to any of my settings. I can change my filters, my crop. So if I was to do my crop again, it has lost nothing there. And to prove it all, I am just going to, firstly, let's just hit cancel because I've made some changes. Let me just go back to edit. And if I hit revert, revert to original, back to the beginning. Isn't that amazing? And that's the same when you're using things like Lightroom as well, if you do get into Lightroom. So that's a quick look at editing here. Your photos on your iPhone, it works the same way on your iPad and very similarly on your Mac as well. As I said, I've done one about brilliance because that's a little bit of a different one. I don't have that setting on Lightroom. And I don't have it on Photoshop either. So I thought that was worth looking at here because I would do that a different way just by adjusting the highlights and also the shadows in there as well. Thanks for watching. If you do like this, please do like, share and subscribe and come back for more. By the time you watch this, I may have just hit my 500th episode on here. So there should be something for you and maybe even your friends and family too. Take care.